Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Midlife Wellness MP podcast. I'm Kim Heifner. I'm a board certified family nurse practitioner, menopause specialist, and host of this podcast. So welcome. Today's guest is founder of Slender for Good and author of the forthcoming book, Slender for Good After 50, Eat More, Stress Less, and Never Diet Again. She's a psychologist, certified health coach who has scoured the research to identify key principles from science on how to actually nourish our body so that we can naturally release excess weight. She provides life-changing understandings of how healthy eating can improve our metabolism, sustain our energy, and keep us naturally slender. Who doesn't want that? I'm excited to welcome to the podcast, Dr. Ginny Trierweller. Hi, Ginny. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation because weight gain is one of the biggest complaints I get from women. And, I'm excited to hear your perspective because, women during perimenopause and menopause, we've heard everything under the sun about how to eat, eat for your body type, eat for your metabolic type, your hormone type, your blood type, do this, don't do that. So, but yet so many women still struggle no matter what they do, which a lot goes into that. So I'm excited to hear your perspective. So let's just start out with what is the number one mistake, in your opinion, for women over 40 that we are making when it comes to eating and maintaining weight loss?
Oh, thanks for asking that. That's a great question. I feel like the number one mistake we're making is calorie cutting dieting. That
Okay.
it is just, it's what we're told. It's what we've said works for 100 years in this country. And yet the more people try to diet, the more people are overweight or obese. And I found we actually have to start with eating more, not eating less. That actually sets our body up for success. It convinces our body we don't have to store excess fat. So when you look throughout the animal kingdom at animals storing excess fat, it's because they're in a low nutrition environment or they're getting ready to hibernate. And when you look at the nutrition environment we've grown up in our whole lives, it really does look like a low nutrition environment. So I don't know if you've seen the research showing that when they study the United States or they study the UK, the percent of food in the grocery store that is highly processed, what I call highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances, is 73%.
Wow.
And so we all grew up thinking we know what's healthy and wholesome from within this, what I call deranged food environment. So now even recognizing what's healthy to eat is quite difficult for us. And it makes me really mad because it's really affecting our health. Our weight is, as I see it, the excess body fat storage is just an indicator that something is very wrong with our metabolic functioning.
Right. And when you look at the top killers, like 4 out of 5 of them are metabolic. So
Exactly.
definitely. Yeah. So what do we do? Like what is the secret? What do we got to
Yeah.
do?
Thank you. Yeah. So the secret, I say the secret is the only secret to really getting sustainable, healthy weight loss is to learn what truly healthy eating is and do that. We
Okay.
don't want to be doing diets so if we're not eating enough nutritious food to start with, like only 27% of our food is nutritious. Our body says, you know what, I'm not getting enough nutrition. I'm going to make you hungry, right? I'm going to change the hormones that make you hungry. I'm going to send more chronic kind of cortisol into your system so that you're sleepless and you have more time to look for food. I'm going to rev up insulin so that you're storing excess fat. So some doctors talk about this like there's a fat switch. And all these things get turned in that direction. We also see elevated blood pressure. We see elevated blood sugar. There's this whole package of things that happen when the animal's not getting enough nutrition. In our environment, that's happening to us. So 80% of us now are overweight or obese, and it just keeps climbing. And then we think, I don't really like this excess fat, so I'm going to eat less.
Right.
So the fat storage is already our body saying, I'm not getting enough nutrition. And then we eat less.
our body is it's like a survival mechanism.
Yes, yes,
Yeah. It's helping us prepare for hard times.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
And the more
So
we
we're not going to force
restrict,
it to stop doing that. That's what it's going to do. We are either going to figure out how to feed it what it needs so it's happy and doesn't feel it has to store excess fat, or we're going to be in this loop of, I'm going to force my body to lose some weight and then it's going to fight back. And I don't know if you ever felt like that, if you ever dieted, but I did feel like I was fighting with my body. Like, come on, why aren't you doing what you should be doing?
yeah, right. Well, people's idea of nutritious foods can be different, right?
Yeah,
There's people that follow ketogenic diets and feel like that's the most nutritious way to eat. And then
yes,
other people are all plant-based diet.
yes,
That's the most important way to eat. I tend to be, hey, we want to focus on getting our nutrients in. We need our
yes,
body needs nourishment. You want to have a
yes,
good fiber amount, you want to have a good protein amount. But what exactly does eating more look like on a daily basis? How does that look,
yeah,
as far as like eating pattern,
yeah.
planning meals? Like what do we need to be
There's
doing?
so
How do
much
we
of what we just said. Yeah. So it is exactly the right question. Well, what would truly healthy eating exactly be then? How would we know when we're doing it? Because
yeah.
if you think of, so I think human beings have been able to eat a variety of foods, throughout human history. Like we've been okay if we're eating a lot of fish, if we're eating a lot of meat, if we're eating a lot of plants, all those things can keep us healthy. What we've not been successful with and will not be successful with is eating a lot of processed foods. That is not working for the human body. So one popular idea, I'm going to talk about this Wednesday in my live talk, is there's no good or bad foods. And I think I understand where that comes from as far as morality. It's not a morality issue. It's not something to try to like force yourself to say no to these foods because they're bad. But there is a difference between how our body handles real nutritious foods and how it handles processed food, non-nutritious foods. One set of foods is going to help our body function its best and do all the repair things it needs to do. The other is going to cause our body to cope with toxicity, to produce addiction responses, and to be flipping that fat switch on and all those metabolic issues that rev up. The body's going to find a way to survive it. We're not going to like what it's doing, right? So I feel like I didn't answer your question. But
Oh,
it's basically, I mean, processed foods is one of the big keys. So like I was just talking with a group of my clients this morning about casseroles, growing up with casseroles and feeling like that, those are the most wholesome things we can have, kind of, right?
oh,
Lasagna, macaroni casserole, etc. And there was a lot of like emotion, like this is love, this is good for me, this is very satisfying, etc. But those are made with a lot of processed stuff.
yeah. It's so hard to get away from it.
Mm-hmm. It is until you get really clear, you know what, that isn't food and I'm going to stop eating it. Like if we're only eating on average 27% nutritious food now, probably humans are meant to eat more like 100% nutritious food.
Right. So
So if,
define nutritious. Is that grass-fed meat? Is that
uh-huh,
mainly vegetables?
yeah, yeah, I
What's
mean,
the 100%? Like
it
what
does
makes
take
that?
me, it does take me about 7 hours to teach this, partly because we've got a lot of ideas in our head. So whether it's
Yeah.
grass-fed or not could be important to some people. But I'll tell you what I found is I looked at hundreds and hundreds of research studies about how does food relate to weight loss? How does food relate to heart disease? How does food relate to diabetes and cancer and dementia and inflammatory conditions? And so it ended up being so many studies. And
Yeah.
because I'm trained in evidence-based practices, what I was looking for is I want to know the things that produce the best results, that really distinguish between good results and bad results. And I
Mm,
want to come up with a handful of principles, guiding principles that predictably and reliably lead to those results.
mm,
So I did. I found 4 key principles that surfaced over and over and over in the literature, and they predictably and reliably add up to results. So my clients and I, we like the weight just kind of seems to come off pretty naturally. And all of these things, whether it's our blood pressure, our cholesterol, our blood sugar levels, et cetera, start to reverse, start to go back into a healthy direction. So we just see it over and over. And we also get a sense of calm. So we don't have some of like the anxiety and depression that has become so popular. So all of these things in our body tell us, this is good. I don't need to be solving all the problems you're throwing at me every day because you're eating plenty of nutritious food. So that among these 4 principles, the first one is eat abundant, highly nutritious foods. And
Okay.
you're right. Like what are those is a big question, right? But
Yeah.
the one thing I'll tell people is they're not processed. So they're not broken down. So an example I like to use is it can be very beneficial to eat whole wheat unless you have an issue with gluten or something, or whole
Okay.
grains, at least a certain amount of whole grains. It looks very beneficial. It's where my last 15 pounds came off, is where I figured out the grain issue. So when people are quitting grains and they're getting a lot of benefit and they're going, this totally works, it's because they cut out a whole bunch of processed food. It's not because the body
Okay.
doesn't want grains, right?
Can you tell me a couple examples of healthy whole grains that to choose
Yeah.
from?
Oh, any of them, like oats,
Oh,
wheat,
okay.
rice, quinoa. There's a lot of them. I really like buckwheat. That's something I found kind of recently. And it's
Okay.
interesting because if you get it prepared a certain way, it's not, I don't like it at all. And another way, I really like it. But anyway, it's one option I like. There's a lot of them, a lot of grains. Yeah.
Yeah, because you kind of hear oatmeal isn't actually that great for you, but it
There's
probably matters
a
which
lot
ones
of
you're choosing.
those messages out there that I think are really unhelpful. You know, I worked in nursing homes for a while as a psychologist, and I had a lot of patients with diabetes. They're going blind, they're losing the ability to walk, all these situations. And what was bizarre to me is they would all go to the ice cream social every day. They would all have lots of bread and desserts and chips. What they would avoid is fruit.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So,
Right.
yeah, they might have fruit juice. So they really have totally misunderstood what's going to be helpful to their body as far as how they take in sugar. Like take in the sugars with the fiber intact in the food that you're eating, right?
Makes
That
total sense. So fruit is okay.
fruit is great. Fruit is a very good thing for us. In my plan, we eat it twice a day. Sometimes people start adding a third time a day. But
Okay.
it's
And they
super
do totally
valuable.
fine.
We eat a lot more of it than people think they should eat.
Okay.
But that's one of the ways you push out the processed foods that are actually harming your body.
Because fruit is sweet and it
Yeah.
will help you kind of, that sweet tooth. I can see
Yes.
where
Yeah.
you just knowing like, hey, fruit is okay. I
I'm
don't need
looking
to
forward to
avoid
my
fruit.
fruit. Yeah. Because we're used
Yeah.
to looking forward
Okay.
to something sweet. Yeah.
Right. And that's
But
okay.
but I grew up thinking fruit juice is better than fruit. Again, that's processed.
Right.
It's
So
easy.
thinking about it, processed food, just think of it, it's not really food because
Yeah.
it's not adding to
Right.
nutrient to your body to perform its functions.
Right. But we grew up thinking orange juice was so nutritious. So our food environment has really lied to us, has really misled us. As what our body needs to access those nutrients with the fiber. Otherwise, it doesn't have a way to access them. So as soon as we turn it into juice, we turn wheat into flour. We just took most of the nutrients out and concentrated the sugars.
Right.
So it seems very palatable. It seems like a great choice to us. It's also very shelf stable, so it's more profitable for the food industry. So standing against this, I have to say I had to get a little mad about how I learned to eat. Like,
Yeah.
that isn't food, and quit telling me it is. Quit telling me that's the best stuff, because that's what they're doing. The food industry spends $14 billion a year just in the US trying to convince us that the non-nutritious stuff is pretty good for us.
Yeah. So what's the next principle?
Oh, the next principle is the one that you and I talked about before this, which is we ought to eat meals and not snacks.
Eat
So
meals, not snacks.
yeah. So we're not
Okay.
eating between lunch and dinner at that 3 o'clock time. We're not eating after dinner. We're eating a lot of food at every meal. And then we don't spike our insulin again until it's time to eat, until it's mealtime. So even when I was little, everybody knew you shouldn't snack. Our parents used to say, don't ruin your appetite for dinner. Don't eat anything before dinner. So we would get an appetite and we would enjoy our food. Now everybody thinks we have to be eating between meals, and that serves the food industry's profits. It is not serving our body.
Well, a lot of people that educate on sustaining hormone health
Yeah.
and even for diabetics say that you need small, frequent meals. You need to be
Yes.
eating every 4 to 6 hours. So
What do you,
that is
yeah.
what we've been told. So you're saying, no,
We
just
need to,
eat
I think we need to eat big meals
big meals.
3 times a day.
Okay.
So one of the things that makes eating the way that I learned so effective is we don't get hungry between meals. We're not. So when people are feeling like I need to have a snack, it's because they didn't eat enough at their meal or not enough real stuff. I mean, you can eat and eat and eat and eat, but if it's not real food, your body's going to say, well, I'm still hungry,
Yeah, that makes total sense.
right?
Right. Okay. What's number three?
Okay, you want me to go through all my principles?
Just four, you said.
There's four. Yeah.
Yeah. It's up
Yeah.
to you. I'm sure
Uh,
people want to know, just summarize or just briefly touch on
yeah.
them, you
Yeah.
know.
The third one is if you want to eliminate cravings, so you don't want to be experiencing cravings while you're making changes, eliminate the things that cause cravings. So I finally realized this, like I had terrible cravings. And when I decided I had to change my eating and drinking, I was crying a lot, like poor me. I have to give up these things that I really, really love. And I didn't have anybody to guide me. I was doing it all on my own. And then I started realizing, okay, I'm actually not having any of those cravings. Maybe I can let go of being so scared of them. And it's because I just took them off the table for a while. I just said, this isn't food. I'm not going to eat it. So I started getting this suspicious attitude toward anything that I would react with extra excitement, like, ooh, that's so good. I can't wait to have that again. Everybody should try this. That excited response to food is a little excessive. It triggered my questions about addiction response.
Mm, okay.
So
Yeah,
if
I
we're
want
having
to get into.
cravings, yeah, that's an
Yeah.
indication of an addiction response. Do I want to keep that pathway going in my brain? The best way to do that is intermittent reinforcement. So I'm going to say no to it, yes. No, no, yes. That's the best way to make cravings worse,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Right.
So I could just decide, you know what, that's not food and my body doesn't need it and I don't like the cravings. So I'm just going to abstain for a while. I started with wine and it was hard because I had really built up to every day drinking wine and always,
Yeah.
and a little more and a little more. That's part of why I was crying is I don't think I can sleep without it. I don't think I can calm down at night without it. I also think I'm going to be really sad. We think
Yeah.
that because we're in an addiction state with that food or drink.
Yeah. And there's a lot of different things you go to for wine, it's going to relax you or,
Yes.
it's a social event or,
Yes.
it's just,
It
you
goes
know,
with the food. Yeah. It gets
yeah.
very, very intertwined with our whole lives. That whole
Yeah.
idea that I'm not going to be able to sleep, which it was obviously ruining my sleep, but
Oh,
I
for
still
sure.
thought I couldn't get to sleep without it. So I thought, well,
Yeah.
I kind of like to get out of that whole loop for a
Yeah.
while. And then
So
later, when
really,
I'm not craving anymore, I can consider, do I want to bring it back? Do I want to see how that goes?
yeah. So it's really empowering to, you know, change your mindset surrounding food,
Thank
essentially.
you.
Yeah.
Yes, this
Just
is
it's a mindset shift.
It really is. Yeah. So people ask, well, why would I have a psychologist guide me on how to eat? Well, one thing is I learned what these four principles are, and they predictably and reliably add up to results. And almost nobody's offering anything like that. But
Yeah.
also, I understand it's not going to work if you're just denying yourself something that you keep saying you love. Oh, but that's a treat. I
Right.
really love that. I really miss that. You're going to want to change those thoughts and feelings.
Right. Yeah. So briefly, what's number four? And then I want to talk a little bit about more about the psychology of things.
Yeah, okay. Number four is there are quantities that add up to good results and quantities that don't. And
Okay.
so we get into figuring out. So one of the biggest things is when I talk about abundant, highly nutritious foods, one thing I saw in the research was like advice about eating a lot of vegetables. And I thought, well, I like vegetables, that's fine. But then as I saw the quantities they're recommending, I was like, well, I'm not eating that much. Not only am I not eating that much, I don't wanna. Like, how am I gonna have room for the things that I save room for, right?
Yeah.
So all of that started to change, but the research was really pointing me to a lot more of certain things than I even thought I wanted to eat. I thought it was gonna be hard. It
Yeah.
didn't, it like I don't feel that way anymore, but it really predicted a difference in results if you ate enough of those things. So I didn't want to weigh or measure my food, but I do because otherwise I don't eat enough. And then I
Oh,
don't get the results.
okay. So really, that's helpful weighing your food and measuring it out. Okay.
It's not to try to make sure we don't eat too much as it's trying to make sure we eat enough.
Right. And so it's not calorie counting. It's
It
not
isn't
that.
calorie
'Cause
counting.
I don't like that.
Yeah, I
That
don't either.
talk
It's
about
wrong.
stress. Yeah, I
It's
don't like that.
wrong. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
So
So,
why?
but how
Yeah,
much
go ahead.
fruits and vegetables do we eat, and how much protein do we eat, and how much grain? And I don't have probably the perfect formula, but my formula adds up to results predictably and reliably, where most of the research shows dieting doesn't, right?
Yeah.
Calorie cutting dieting does not add up to lasting results. This does, and very predictably. So I think we will keep figuring out good answers, and everybody individualizes things. Like some people don't eat meat and some people do, and some people don't eat dairy and some people do. There's a lot of individualization, but it's super helpful to have clarity around, well, I eat this much fruits and vegetables. I eat this much protein, right? I eat this
Yeah.
much fat. Yeah.
Yeah. So next question really is about psychology and how you as a psychologist are, leading the way, sort of a movement to change how we eat. So
Yeah.
why is that so important?
Yeah. Well, like I say, if we feel like the best foods, I really think if you think about it, this is what we feel in our society. The best foods, the special foods, the exciting foods, the ones I look forward to, the ones everyone makes yummy noises about all around me are the
Mm.
non-nutritious food-like substances. So we have greatly come to overvalue those as the things we're saving room for, as the things we can't wait for, as the things we take to people when they're upset or they're celebrating. And by the corollary is we've come to really undervalue real food, highly
Yeah.
nutritious food. And like one example I always think about is many people have told me, I really don't like water unless I add something to it. So this feeds that understanding of nutritional derangement. Human beings need water even more than they need food. The
Yeah.
fact that we don't think we want water without something added to it, like a sweetener, is disturbing. It's deranged.
That is so true. I heard something I was listening to somebody, I don't remember what, but one thing that stood out to me just for women going through hormonal changes and the things that happen as we go through perimenopause and menopause. The one thing she said is back in the day, we used to add a little milk to our coffee, but
Okay.
now we add a little coffee to all our milk and
And
whatever
sugar.
else.
Yeah.
And sure, so there's
Yeah.
very little very little coffee and more of
Right.
the other stuff. Whereas
Right.
it used to be, the
Yeah.
opposite. We would just have our coffee and just put a
Right.
little milk in there, and that was
Right.
that. And so that really has shifted. And I'm sure
Yes.
the excess calories and fat has come right along with that.
Yeah.
Just
The excess
starting your day
sugar
out like that.
consumes
Yeah,
way
every single
more than the
day.
calories, right? So
Yeah.
in 1700, the average person was eating 4 pounds of sugar a year.
Mm.
In 2012, what do you think it was?
Oh my goodness. Pounds and pounds.
180 pounds.
Wow. A year.
Our body, yeah, our body, and it keeps going up, right? Our bodies cannot handle this. It's toxic. If all we could do was access sugar, like, during the season when the fruit is really ripe and falling, if that's the only time we could get something that was fermented that would make, we'd be okay. But this stuff is around us every day. It feels like it belongs at every meal. We need things to be sweetened, and it's devastating to our health.
Yeah. Um, no, exactly. I've been trying to read a lot of labels for my son. He's 16, for lunches
Yeah,
and I've been paying so close attention to high fructose corn syrup.
yeah,
And it's so hard to find anything without it if you're
yes,
not just, and I'm just thinking of little, maybe a bar before his football practice or
yes,
something. So
yes.
it's like, really, there's not
Those
a
things
whole lot
aren't
out there.
foods. They're like candy bars, right? I love them.
Exactly.
And I would look
Yeah.
for the most expensive ones that had like dark chocolate and sea salt. And yeah, it's still a
Yeah.
candy bar. But
It
yeah,
is. It is. So you really, it's changed what, like lunches, it's more like, no, like carrots and celery and grapes,
yeah,
different flavored grapes. So he's getting
yes,
different varieties. You know what I mean? And
yes,
it's improved his health just by looking at labels and stop buying that stuff. But
yes,
so, yeah, I think that the food environment is so, what you're talking about is so true. How can women change? Like you were talking about the differences between the psychology and healthy eating versus
yeah,
the psychology of dieting.
yes.
What is the
These
difference?
are
And
180 degrees difference. I love watching my clients get these mindset shifts. I usually work with people for a year because I'm promising they'll get slender for good, right? That I want you to
yeah,
never have to diet again. I want you to know how to eat and just do that. And it takes a
yeah,
little while for all those shifts. But the idea of, I think I just need to eat less right now. Like I remember going for a colonoscopy last year and having to fast and suffering and thinking, well, maybe I'll lose weight. What did I just
yeah,
say to myself? Oh, good. Maybe I'll lose weight because I'm fasting, or maybe I'll lose weight because I'm sick and I don't feel like eating. All those mindsets of, oh, it's really good if I can get away with eating less are leading us into unsustainable. I'm just going to eat less and less and less and less. I had one client a few years ago, Lily, who was very good at dieting and exercise and always stayed slender until menopause, and then everything quit working. And
right.
she had gotten to the point where she was eating so little and continuing to gain weight. And I've heard doctors say this over and over. Have you seen that before?
Oh, all the time.
Yes. So she was thrilled. I mean, she was scared when I told her how much I wanted her to eat, but she ended up being thrilled. Like, this is abundant. It's delicious. I love it. And she got back to her healthy weight and just stayed there. So
Yeah.
you're just that kind of mindset of I just have to eat less and I'm going to suffer. I'm going to be hungry. It's going to be miserable, but I'll just do it for a while and then I'll go back to my old ways of eating.
Right.
Perfect if you want temporary results.
Right. It's a very restrictive mindset, and
Yeah.
that's not sustainable.
It isn't sustainable. It's absolutely unsustainable. So when I got really clear, part of what I want is sustainable results. I never want to do this again. I don't want to be focused on my weight the rest of my life. Then I thought, well, you're going to need a sustainable approach then, right? And
Right.
that's part of the mindset that has to shift. I'm not dieting. So the way we talk about it lots of times is I'm not on a diet. This is just the way I eat, and I love it.
Yeah. Well, even the focus on fasting and
Yeah.
not
Yes.
eating
Yes.
is again, and I'm not, I like the kind of the time restricted eating, not eating less, but just
Right.
eating it in the daytime hours. So,
Right. Right.
because I get patients all the time, well, what do you want me to eat? How do you want
Yeah.
me to eat? And I'm not like, I don't want you to restrict and focus on what you can't have.
Right.
It's a negative mindset surrounding food. And
Yeah.
I don't think that's healthy. In other
It's
words,
not,
just think
you can't do
eat
it.
abundantly
Yes.
during the
Yes.
day when you're awake and it's
Right.
time to eat,
Yes.
and shut things down when the moon is out. Like that's not
Right.
time to eat. So eat
Yeah,
healthy when
train
you
your
can.
body. Yeah, train your body, train your.
Yeah.
I remember a client, Barb, saying, well, Ginny, I'm not going to say no if somebody brings over a strawberry rhubarb pie that they made from their family recipe and they made it for me. And later she said, I don't have any problem going, thank you so much, and putting it in the refrigerator to give to someone else later because I know it doesn't serve me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the mindset for sure.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
what we value is part of it, whether we're going to change temporarily or for a lifestyle, and how we're going to think and feel about the changes we're making. But we really do start with adding before we subtract, and it helps our body. Like, oh, I didn't know you were ever going to give me enough food. Now I don't have to store excess fat anymore. But it also serves our mind. Like we're not going, oh, this is so hard. I really want the thing, and Ginny won't let me.
Yeah. So do you help people come up with meal plans and like examples, like when they're working, like, hey, this is what you're going to eat in a day? Like, you
Yes,
know,
we're super clear what we eat in a day. We know what breakfast, lunch, and dinner is going to be in terms of the quantities of whole grains, fats, proteins, fruits, vegetables. I think that's it. Yeah, so we're super clear what adds up to results, and we find a way to just eat that way every day. And then
okay.
we come across over the course of a year, oh, but it was my birthday. I'm going to make an exception on my birthday, right? And the holidays, I'm going to go crazy over the holidays. And I'm going on that cruise. And the thing is, that doesn't ever lead to habit change. Like it leads to having to decide all the time, is this a special day or is this a usual day? And I
Right.
just find we don't have to go very far off our plan before the results just stop. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I
Yeah.
think I have women that tell me if I feel like if I'd eat anything, I'm swollen and fat. Everything gain weight just thinking about things.
Yes. Yeah,
No.
it's the non-nutritious foods that need to probably go, but they can't do it until they eat enough of the nutritious foods. You can't just
Yeah.
do it and feel hungry. I don't think. Maybe some people can be that disciplined, but I can't do it. I feel too upset.
Yeah. Like you just need to be full because then you're
Yeah.
not thinking about food anymore. You're on to the
Full.
next thing.
Yeah. It's full and it's also there's an energy to eating a lot of nutritious foods. People start telling me within a week or two, I actually had a pain go away in my back that I just had been used to for many, many years. Your body starts telling you, this is good. Like you start
Yeah.
getting a calm energy in your body. It's a little hard to explain. Everybody says something along those lines. I'm just coping with things better. I'm solving problems better. Like our body, our brain needs those nutrients. We are not giving our body the nutrients it needs.
Right. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
Right. Well, when is your book coming out?
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm just finishing chapter 8 out of 12. And so
Okay.
I would say in the next month, it'll be going to the editors. I'm really aiming for before the holidays to have the
Oh,
book
wow.
come out.
That'd be perfect.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah. What
When
can
people,
readers expect from the book?
yeah. Let's see. What's my title? You probably have it in front of you. Slender for Good After 50, Eat More, Stress Less, and Never Diet Again. Um, yeah, so what they can expect is like I run through this whole thing of why the things we've been doing don't work, why what does work works, and what does it look like. And so I go through the 4 fundamental principles and describe them in some detail. I tell them there's also this core mechanism that makes it work, which is that you need to have a high degree of fidelity. And we just find this in all kinds of interventions in the world is when we have a proven effective approach, it will keep working as long as people follow it at a high degree of fidelity, as long as they're quite faithful to it. But we
Mm.
all grew up learning, I'll see how I feel, and I'll see if it's a special occasion. For me, special occasions ended up being every single day of my life and not just evening, but also lunch. And in between lunch, everything had to be special. So really breaking that, let's make things really special and instead leaning into how can I thoroughly enjoy just eating what my body needs and just feel really proud to give my body what it needs every day, meal after meal.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
so that principle I have to kind of lay out for people. They kind of know, I probably have to follow the plan, but how close do I have to follow the plan? That's really important. So that'll be in there too. And the last 3 chapters will take them through starting to make some of these changes in their life.
Yeah, a lot of psychology tied into all of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it's so true when you research weight loss, so much more than even just the food, but the behaviors associated with the food. It's a combination of all of those things that go into play. It's not just one thing,
Right.
it's, using food for comfort, having a certain routine or always
Yes.
having a dessert or,
Yes.
all of those things tie into sustainable weight loss.
Yes.
And, slow and steady is probably always best when
Yeah,
it
I
comes.
think we tend to be losing weight 1 to 2 pounds a week on our plan. And sometimes people feel like, can't it go faster? It could, maybe.
Yeah,
But I don't know that that would make it as sustainable.
that's about accurate. Like 1 to 2 pounds is great. I
I think
mean,
so. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Well, if you had a giant billboard that
Mm.
all women over 40 would see, I always ask this of my
Yeah.
podcast guests, what would you want women to see on that billboard? What would you want to say to them?
I think I'd be saying, whatever you do, stop dieting and focus on eating abundant, highly nutritious foods.
Okay.
I think that'd be my message. That'll change people's lives.
Yeah. That's great advice. That's great
Yeah.
advice. Thank you so much for being here. How can people find you, follow you, and
Yeah.
hopefully buy your book?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so you can go to slenderforgood.com and learn more about how all this works on my website. If you sign up there, I have a 5-minute video, a little under 5-minute video on why dieting doesn't work. I'm on a mission to help people understand this. The other thing is I have a YouTube channel at Slender for Good as well. So every week I'm putting out content either on how to eat differently or on the psychology that works or on the practical tools and habit change practices that work. So I would love to have people join in.
Yeah, awesome. Well, it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to reading your book, and I wish you all of the success that comes with it and spreading your message because it's so important. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great day. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.